Commander Park Ji-won stood at the observation window of New Jeju Station and watched the miners return from their shift. The small transport ships moved slowly through the asteroid field, their running lights blinking in the darkness of space. It was a peaceful sight. Park had seen this same scene every day for 3 years, and it never got old. New Jeju was not a large outpost. Only 847 people lived here. Most of them were miners who came to extract rare minerals from the asteroids. Some were scientists who studied the strange rocks and looked for signs of ancient life. A few were security officers like Lieutenant Choi Sung-min, who mostly dealt with equipment accidents and the occasional argument between tired workers. Dr. Han Min-seo walked into the command center carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Park and stood beside him at the window. "Another quiet day," she said with a smile. Park nodded. "That is how I like it. Quiet and safe." Han was the chief scientist at the outpost. She spent most of her time in the laboratory, studying rock samples and running tests. She had been excited lately because she thought she might have found evidence of ancient microbial life in some of the deeper asteroids. It would be a major discovery if she was right. "How is your research going?" Park asked. "Very well," Han replied. "I should have results from the latest samples by tomorrow. If I am correct, this could change what we know about how life spreads through the galaxy." Park smiled. This was why humanity had come to space. Not to fight or conquer, but to learn and explore. Earth had joined the Galactic Council 20 years ago, and since then, humans had been careful to follow all the rules. They traded fairly with other species. They respected territorial boundaries. They sought knowledge and cooperation. The alarm shattered the peaceful moment. Red lights flashed across every screen in the command center. The warning klaxon was so loud that Park almost dropped his coffee. Lieutenant Choi rushed in from the security office, his face pale. "Commander, we have incoming ships," Choi said quickly. "Multiple contacts, emerging from faster-than-light travel. They are not broadcasting any identification codes." Park moved to the main console. The screen showed 6 large ships appearing in space near the outpost. They were unlike any design Park had seen before. Dark, angular vessels covered in what looked like organic armor. They were enormous, each one 10 times the size of New Jeju Station. "Try to contact them," Park ordered. "All frequencies. Let them know we are a peaceful mining outpost." Choi worked the communications panel. "Broadcasting on all standard channels. No response, Commander." Park felt a cold fear growing in his chest. "Raise defensive shields. Get everyone to emergency stations. Send a distress signal to Earth immediately." The words were barely out of his mouth when the first weapons fired. Bright green plasma bolts streaked across space and slammed into New Jeju's defensive satellites. The satellites exploded in brilliant flashes. Within seconds, all 6 were destroyed. The outpost's shields flickered and strained under the assault. "They are attacking us," Choi shouted, though everyone could see it for themselves. Park grabbed the station-wide intercom. "This is Commander Park. We are under attack. All personnel to emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Move now." Throughout the station, alarms blared. Miners dropped their tools and ran. Scientists abandoned their experiments. Parents grabbed their children. Everyone knew where the shelters were. They had practiced this drill many times, though no one ever thought they would need it for real. Dr. Han ran toward the science wing. "I have to get the children from the education center," she called back to Park. "Go, hurry," Park yelled. The attacking ships moved closer. Park could see them better now on the screens. They looked like giant insects, all sharp edges and chitinous plates. Small fighter craft poured out of their launch bays like angry wasps from a disturbed nest. Lieutenant Choi coordinated the evacuation while trying to organize what little defense the outpost had. New Jeju was not a military base. It had basic shields and a few defensive weapons meant to destroy dangerous asteroids, not fight off warships. The security team of 12 officers armed themselves with rifles and took positions at the main airlocks, but Park knew it would not be enough. The enemy ships fired again. This time they targeted the habitat modules directly. Explosions ripped through the eastern section of the station. Park watched in horror as life support readings dropped to 0 in 3 modules. Over 100 people had been in that section. Now those readings showed no life signs at all. "Science wing is hit!" someone screamed over the radio. Park's heart seized. Han had been going to the science wing. "Dr. Han, respond!" Static filled the channel. Then, weakly, Han's voice came through. "I am here. I got the children out. We are heading to shelter B7. The wing is... It is gone, Commander. Everything is destroyed." Relief and grief hit Park at the same time. Han was alive, but so many others were not. He pulled up the shelter status on his screen. People were making it to the reinforced bunkers, but not fast enough. The enemy was not trying to disable the station. They were trying to destroy it completely. The first landing craft struck the outer hull. Park heard the metallic screech of cutting torches. They were boarding. "Choi, fall back to the command center," Park ordered. "Seal all interior bulkheads. We need to buy time for people to reach the shelters." The security channel filled with gunfire and screaming. Park watched the security cameras as the enemy soldiers came through the breached hull. They were massive creatures, standing over 2 meters tall, with 4 arms and armored exoskeletons that looked like they were grown rather than built. They carried weapons that fired superheated projectiles. Human security officers fired back, but their bullets barely scratched the enemy armor. The creatures did not take prisoners. They did not demand surrender. They simply killed every human they found. For 6 hours, New Jeju Station burned and bled. Park and the survivors huddled in the command center, watching the horror unfold on screens and listening to the desperate voices on the radio grow fewer and fewer. The distress beacon continued broadcasting, sending humanity's plea for help out into the void, knowing that Earth was weeks away. When the attack finally ended, the enemy ships simply left. They departed as suddenly as they had arrived, vanishing back into faster-than-light travel without explanation or communication. They left behind nothing but death and wreckage. Park emerged from the command center once the sensors confirmed the enemy was gone. He walked through corridors filled with smoke and floating debris. Bodies drifted in the zero gravity where hull breaches had vented entire sections to space. He found Lieutenant Choi in the security office, wounded but alive. He found Dr. Han with a group of survivors in shelter B7, holding frightened children who would never see their parents again. They counted the survivors. 124 people remained. 723 were dead. Park stood in the ruined command center and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the creatures who had done this were still alive, still free, still unpunished. He did not know their name or their reasons. He did not know if they would come back, but he knew that Earth would hear what happened here, and Earth would respond. The news reached Earth 17 days after the attack. Commander Park's distress signal traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying video footage of the massacre and detailed sensor records of the enemy ships. When the signal arrived at Earth Defense Command, it triggered immediate alerts across every government building on the planet. Admiral Kim Tae-yang was in a strategic planning meeting when his aide rushed in and whispered urgently in his ear. Kim's face went pale. He stood up without a word and left the room, nearly running to the operations center. What he saw on the screens there made his blood run cold. The footage from New Jeju played on the main display. Kim watched as the unknown ships emerged from nowhere and opened fire without warning. He watched plasma bolts destroy the defensive satellites. He watched the station burn. He watched armored creatures tear through corridors, killing everyone they found. No mercy, no prisoners, just slaughter. "Who are they?" Kim asked quietly. "Unknown, sir," the intelligence officer replied. We are running their ship signatures through every database. So far, no matches with any known species in the Galactic Council records. Kim watched the footage again and again. Each time it made him angrier. Get me President Lee, immediately, and wake up every member of the Security Council. We need an emergency session within the hour. President Lee Da-yoon arrived at the government complex in the middle of the night. She had been home with her family when the call came. Now she sat in the emergency command room, watching the same footage that Kim had seen. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair so tightly that her knuckles turned white. 723 dead, she said softly. How many children? 83, Madam President, an aide answered. Lee closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, they were hard. Brief me. Everything we know. Kim stepped forward. The attack lasted 6 hours. The enemy used overwhelming force against a civilian mining outpost with minimal defenses. They made no attempt to communicate. They took no prisoners. After destroying most of the station and killing 85% of the personnel, they simply left. Ambassador Yoon Jae-sung spoke up from his seat at the table. This is a clear violation of Galactic Council law. The Council Charter explicitly forbids attacks on civilian targets. We must bring this before the Council immediately and demand action. What kind of action? Kim asked sharply. What will the Council do? Issue a formal complaint? Send a strongly worded message? Yoon bristled at the tone. The Council has procedures for dealing with aggressive species. Economic sanctions, travel restrictions, military containment. While we wait for the Council to debate and discuss, more human outposts could be attacked, Kim interrupted. More humans could die. How many is acceptable, Ambassador? Another 700? Another 1,000? Admiral, I understand your anger, but we must follow proper channels, Yoon insisted. If humanity acts unilaterally without Council approval, we could be branded as the aggressors. We could be expelled from the Council entirely. President Lee raised her hand, and both men fell silent. Admiral Kim, you have been reviewing the intelligence. Tell me what you have learned about these creatures. Kim nodded to his aide, who brought up new information on the screens. We have identified them. They are called the Krell, an insectoid species from the Orion Arm. They are members of the Galactic Council, though they are isolated and rarely interact with other species. Council members? Lee's voice was ice. They are council members and they did this? Yes, Madam President, and there is more. Kim brought up additional reports. We searched council records going back 100 years. The Krell have done this before. 3 other species have reported similar attacks on their frontier outposts. Small, isolated stations hit without warning. Heavy casualties. Then the Krell disappear before any response can be organized. And what did the Council do about these previous attacks? Lee asked, though she already knew the answer. They issued formal warnings to the Krell government. They asked for explanations. The Krell claimed the attacks were unauthorized actions by rogue military elements. They paid small amounts of compensation. Then they did it again to the next species. Lee stood and walked to the screens showing the Krell ship designs. They are testing us. They attack an outpost to see what we will do. If we do nothing, they see us as weak. If we only complain to the Council, they see us as toothless. They will attack again. That is my assessment as well, Madam President, Kim agreed. Ambassador Yoon looked between them nervously. Surely you are not suggesting military retaliation? The Krell have a powerful fleet. Intelligence estimates suggest they could field over 200 warships. Earth would be starting a war we cannot win. I am not suggesting a conventional war, Kim said carefully. He glanced at President Lee, who nodded for him to continue. During the early days of space expansion, when humanity first encountered hostile alien probes near the solar system, we developed contingency plans, worst-case scenarios. We created weapons designed not to fight battles, but to end threats completely. What kind of weapons? Yoon asked. Kim brought up classified files on a secure screen. The Stellar Extinction Protocol, a series of gravity manipulation devices that can be deployed around a star. When activated, they create cascading gravitational instabilities that force the star into premature collapse. Within 72 hours, the star goes supernova. Everything in the system is destroyed. The room fell completely silent. Yoon stared at the Admiral in horror. "You are talking about destroying an entire solar system, billions of lives. That is genocide." "That is protection," Kim replied firmly. "The Krell have shown they cannot be reasoned with. They view other species as prey. They kill our people for sport or ritual or whatever barbaric reason drives them. If we do nothing, they will attack again. If we complain to the Council, they will attack again. The only language they will understand is complete, overwhelming response." "Admiral, I must protest this course of action in the strongest possible terms," Yoon said, standing. "This would make humanity into monsters. We would be no better than the Krell themselves." "No," Lee said quietly, and everyone turned to look at her. "We would be nothing like the Krell. The Krell attacked innocent miners and scientists. They killed children. They did it without provocation, without warning, without reason. If we deploy the Stellar Extinction Protocol, it will be in direct response to mass murder. It will be a measured response to an intolerable act, and it will ensure they never hurt humans again." Yoon shook his head. "Madam President, please reconsider. This will change everything. Our relationship with the Galactic Council, our reputation among peaceful species, our very identity as a civilization. Once you use such a weapon, you cannot take it back." "I know," Lee said, "and I have not made this decision yet. I will not make it in one night based on anger and grief, but I will not rule it out either." She turned to Kim. "Admiral, I want full intelligence on the Krell. Find their homeworld, map their defenses, determine if the Stellar Extinction Protocol can be successfully deployed. I want options on my desk within 72 hours. "Yes." "Madam President." Lee looked at each person in the room. "This information does not leave this room. If word gets out that we are even considering such action, it could cause panic both on Earth and in the Council. We must appear to be following normal diplomatic channels while we prepare for all possibilities." For 3 days, the government debated behind closed doors. Intelligence reports flooded in. Public outrage grew as the news of New Jeju spread. Memorials were held in every city. Families of the victims demanded justice. On the 3rd day, President Lee called Admiral Kim to her office. They stood together looking out at the city lights of Geneva, where the Earth government made its home. "Can it be done?" Lee asked. "Yes, Madam President. We have located the Krell homeworld. We have the delivery system ready. One stealth ship can deploy the devices before the Krell even know we are there." Lee was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke. 723 people died at New Jeju. They were miners and scientists and teachers and children. They were there to explore and learn and build a better future. The Krell took that future away from them. And if we do nothing, they will do it again to someone else. She turned to face Kim. "Deploy the Stellar Extinction Protocol. May God forgive us." Kim saluted. "It will be done." Captain Song Hye-jin had been a reconnaissance officer for 12 years, and she had never been given a mission like this one. She stood in the briefing room at Earth Defense Command, looking at the star charts displayed on the screen. Admiral Kim pointed to a system marked in red, deep in Krell territory. "This is your target," Kim said. "The Krell homeworld. You will take the stealth ship, Silent Observer, into their system and gather complete intelligence. We need to know their defensive capabilities, their fleet positions, and confirm that this is indeed their primary world. You will not engage, you will not be detected, you will observe and return." Song studied the charts carefully. "How long for the mission, Admiral?" 11 days to reach their system using the newest faster-than-light drive. 3 days for observation. 11 days to return. Total mission time, 25 days. And if we are detected? Kim's face was grim. You will not make it home. The Krell will destroy you. That is why we chose the Silent Observer. She has the best stealth technology humanity has ever developed. You will be invisible to their sensors. Song nodded. She had known this would be dangerous when she volunteered. When do we leave? 4 hours. Choose your crew carefully. They need to know this mission is classified at the highest level. They cannot tell anyone where they are going or what they are doing. Song selected 8 crew members, all experienced officers who had served with her before. She trusted them with her life. They would need that trust in the days ahead. The Silent Observer departed from Earth's military shipyard in the dark of night. No ceremony, no announcement. The ship simply vanished into faster-than-light space, leaving no trace. While Song and her crew traveled toward Krell space, Dr. Nam Ki-woo worked in a secure laboratory deep underground. Nam was humanity's leading expert in gravitational physics. He had been working on the stellar extinction protocol for 7 years, refining the design, running simulations, hoping he would never need to use it. Now, Admiral Kim stood in his laboratory, asking him to prepare the weapon for actual deployment. How does it work? Kim asked, looking at the devices laid out on the lab tables. Nam picked up one of the smooth, spherical objects. It was about the size of a basketball, made of exotic materials that seemed to absorb light. These are gravity manipulation bombs. Each one contains a small singularity held in stasis by powerful magnetic fields. When deployed around a star in a specific pattern, they create gravitational stress points. He brought up a simulation on his computer screen. The star's natural fusion processes become unstable. The core begins to collapse. Normally, this would take millions of years. But with the gravity bombs creating artificial pressure, it happens in 72 hours. The star goes supernova. Kim watched the simulation. A star collapsed, then exploded in a wave of destruction that consumed everything in the system. Planets, moons, space stations, ships, all erased in an instant. How many bombs do we need? 48 devices deployed in a precise geometric pattern around the target star. The deployment must be exact. If even one bomb is placed incorrectly, the cascade might not trigger or might trigger unpredictably. Can it be stopped once the process begins? Nam shook his head. No. Once the cascade starts, nothing can stop it. The physics are inevitable. Kim looked at the scientist carefully. Are you prepared for what this means? If we use this weapon, you will be responsible for the deaths of billions. Nam met his gaze steadily. I saw the footage from New Jeju, Admiral. I saw what the Krell did to our people. I have spent my career studying the fundamental forces of the universe. I never imagined I would use that knowledge to destroy an entire world. But if this weapon can prevent more attacks, if it can protect human lives, then yes, I am prepared. 11 days later, the Silent Observer reached the edge of the Krell system. Captain Song ordered the ship to drift on minimal power, using only passive sensors. They were positioned far from the star, hidden among the system's outer asteroid belt. Begin full-spectrum scans, Song ordered quietly. I want every piece of data we can gather. The crew worked in silence, their instruments collecting information. Slowly, a picture emerged of the Krell homeworld and its defenses. The planet was the third from the star, a world of dark green oceans and brown continents. Cities covered entire continents, their lights visible even from this distance. Orbital stations ringed the planet, connected by streams of traffic. The Krell civilization was massive and ancient, but what made Song's blood run cold was the orbital debris. Her sensors officer called her over to his station. Captain, you need to see this. I am picking up wreckage in multiple orbits around the homeworld. The computer is analyzing the materials and design patterns. Song looked at the data appearing on the screen. The debris came from ships, but not Krell ships. The hull materials and construction methods matched dozens of different species. Some of the wreckage was centuries old. Some was recent. "They are trophies," Song said quietly. "They bring pieces of the ships they destroy back here, like hunters displaying their kills." The sensors officer brought up surface scans. "Captain, I am detecting massive structures on the surface near the capital city. The architecture does not match Krell building styles. I think they are monuments, built from parts of destroyed alien vessels." Song felt sick. The Krell had been doing this for a long time. How many species had they attacked? How many civilizations had lost colonies or outposts to their raids? The evidence was right here, orbiting their homeworld like a graveyard. "Continue scanning," she ordered. "I want everything documented." Over the next 3 days, the silent observer gathered detailed intelligence. They intercepted Krell communications and used translation software to decode them. What they learned confirmed humanity's worst fears. The attacks on frontier outposts were not accidents or rogue operations. They were officially sanctioned military rituals. Young Krell warriors proved their worth by attacking what they called soft species, races that had not developed strong military traditions. It was considered honorable to attack unarmed targets. It showed courage to kill those who could not fight back effectively. The translated communications revealed that the new Jeju attack had earned the participating warriors high honors. They had been celebrated at government ceremonies. The Krell military command was already planning the next raid. Another human outpost had been selected. The attack would come within 3 months. Song listened to the communications with growing anger. The Krell spoke about humans the way humans might speak about insects: weak, soft, easy prey. They believed humanity would complain to the Galactic Council and then do nothing, just like the other species they had attacked. "They have never faced real retaliation," Song said to her executive officer. "They attack and run, and no one ever makes them pay a price." Her executive officer looked at the scan data showing the Krell homeworld's defenses. "Because everyone is afraid to start a war. The Krell have a powerful fleet. Even if you won eventually, the cost would be enormous." "Unless you do not fight a conventional war," Song said thoughtfully. She looked at the star at the center of the system. "Unless you remove their ability to fight back at all." She noticed something important in the defensive scans. The Krell had orbital weapon platforms and a large military fleet, but their planetary shields were minimal. They had never needed strong defenses because no one had ever dared to attack their home world. Their arrogance had created a weakness. After 3 days of observation, Song ordered the crew to prepare for departure. They had everything they needed. Every sensor reading had been recorded. Every communication had been decoded. The intelligence data would show Earth's government exactly what the Krell were and what they planned to do. The silent observer slipped away from the Krell system as silently as it had arrived. The Krell never knew humanity had been watching them. They never suspected that their world had been targeted. Song stood on the bridge during the long journey home. She thought about the billions of Krell living on that world. Most of them were probably innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the military raids. Children, families, people who worked normal jobs and lived normal lives. But she also thought about the 83 children who died at New Jeju. She thought about the miners who were just trying to make a living. She thought about Dr. Han pulling children from the wreckage while the station burned around her. When the silent observer returned to Earth, Song delivered her report directly to Admiral Kim. She showed him the evidence of the Krell's trophy collection. She played the intercepted communications revealing their plans for future attacks. She showed him the defensive weaknesses around their homeworld. Kim reviewed everything carefully. Then he looked at Song. "Captain, in your professional opinion, can the Stellar Extinction Protocol be successfully deployed in this system?" Song thought about the question. She thought about what her answer would mean. Then she spoke clearly. Yes, Admiral. A single stealth ship could deploy the gravity bombs without detection. The Krell defenses are focused on conventional threats. They are not prepared for this kind of weapon. Kim nodded slowly. Thank you, Captain. You and your crew have done excellent work. This intelligence will help President Lee make her final decision. Song saluted and left. As she walked through the corridors of Earth Defense Command, she wondered if she would be remembered as the officer who scouted a target for genocide or as someone who helped protect humanity from a brutal enemy. She decided it did not matter. History would judge them all eventually. For now, she had done her duty. Commander Bae Jun-ho had commanded stealth operations for 8 years. He had flown missions into hostile territory, gathered intelligence under enemy noses, and extracted assets from impossible situations. But he had never been asked to do anything like this. He stood in Admiral Kim's office, looking at the mission briefing on the secure tablet. The ship's name made him pause. Final warning. That is what you are calling it? Kim nodded. President Lee chose the name herself. She wants the Krell to understand, even if they never learn the details, this is not murder. This is not conquest. This is humanity's final warning to anyone who would slaughter our people. Bae read through the mission parameters. Enter the Krell system. Deploy 48 gravity manipulation devices around their star in a precise pattern. Escape before detection. The timeline was tight. Deployment would take 18 hours of careful work. Any mistake could alert the Krell and doom the mission. When do we launch? Bae asked. 48 hours. Choose your crew. Everyone must volunteer. They need to understand what they are doing. Bae selected his crew carefully. He needed his best pilot, Lieutenant Park Soo-bin, who could navigate through sensor nets without being detected. He needed engineer Oh Soo-jin, who had trained on the gravity bomb deployment systems. He needed experienced officers who would not break under pressure. He called them together in a secure briefing room and showed them the footage from New Jeju. He showed them the intelligence about the Krell's trophy collection and their plans for future raids. Then he told them about the mission. We are going to destroy the Krell homeworld, he said plainly, not with conventional weapons. We are going to make their star explode. Everyone in the system will die, billions of people. Most of them are probably innocent, but their military has killed our people and plans to kill more. Our government has decided that the only way to stop them is to remove their ability to attack ever again. The briefing room was silent. The crew members looked at each other. Some looked shocked. Some looked grim. Some looked determined. I will not order anyone to go on this mission, Bae continued. It must be voluntary. If you want to refuse, there will be no punishment, no mark on your record. But if you come with me, you need to understand what we are doing. We will be executioners. History may judge us as monsters or heroes, but we will have to live with what we have done. Engineer Oh Soo-jin spoke first. My cousin was at New Jeju. She was a teacher. She died trying to get her students to the shelter. I volunteer. One by one, the others volunteered. Every single crew member. The final warning launched from a secret military shipyard on the far side of the moon. Only a handful of people knew about the mission. President Lee herself came to see them off, standing in the observation room as the sleek black ship powered up its engines. She activated the ship's communication channel. Commander Bae, you and your crew carry the weight of this decision, but you do not carry it alone. I gave the order. The responsibility is mine. You are simply the instrument of humanity's will. May your mission succeed, and may we all find peace with what must be done. Bae stood on the bridge as the ship entered faster than light space. The crew was quiet. They all understood the magnitude of their task. Engineer O sat in the weapons bay, running final checks on the gravity bombs. Each device had been tested and retested. They would work. The physics were certain. The 11-day journey felt both too long and too short. Bae spent the time reviewing the mission plan repeatedly, looking for any flaw or oversight. Lieutenant Park practiced the navigation routes. memorizing every sensor net and patrol pattern in the Krell system. The crew prepared themselves mentally for what was coming. They emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Krell system, exactly where Captain Song had observed from weeks earlier. The final warning drifted on minimal power. All non-essential systems shut down. They were a ghost in the darkness, invisible to Krell sensors. "Take us in slowly," Bay ordered. "Standard stealth approach. If anyone detects us, we abort and run." Lieutenant Park guided the ship through the outer system with perfect precision. They moved like a shadow, using the asteroid belt for cover, timing their movements to avoid patrol ships. It took 3 days to reach the optimal deployment position. Bay looked out at the Krell star. It burned steady and yellow, a normal star like billions of others in the galaxy. In 72 hours, it would be dead, and so would everything that depended on its light and warmth. "Engineer!" "Oh, begin deployment," Bay ordered. O worked in the weapons bay with focused intensity. Each gravity bomb had to be launched with perfect timing and trajectory. The devices were small and stealthy, but there were 48 of them. They had to drift into position without being detected, then activate in the correct sequence. The deployment took 18 hours. One by one, the devices launched from the final warning. They drifted on minimal power, using gravitational pulls from the system's planets to move into position. O monitored each one, adjusting trajectories with tiny thruster bursts. The work was tedious and stressful. One mistake could ruin everything. Bay made the crew rotate through shifts, but he stayed on the bridge the entire time. He watched the Krell homeworld on the long-range sensors. Ships moved in orbit. Cities glowed with light. Life continued normally down there. People were working, eating, sleeping. They had no idea what was drifting toward their star. "We should make them watch," one of the crew members said quietly. "The Krell. They should see what is coming." Bay shook his head. "No, this is not about revenge or cruelty. This is about protection. We are not monsters. We are people who were given an impossible choice." When the 48th device was in position, O ran final checks on the deployment pattern. Every bomb was exactly where it needed to be. The geometric pattern was perfect. The activation sequence was loaded and ready. "All devices in position," O reported. "Activation sequence standing by." Bay looked at his crew. They were exhausted from the stress and the long hours, but they were ready. "This is the moment. Once I give the command, there is no stopping what happens next. Does anyone want to say anything before we proceed?" Lieutenant Park spoke. 723 people died at New Jeju. We are here for them. We are here so it never happens again. The others nodded. There was nothing more to say. "Engineer O, activate the sequence," Bay commanded. O entered the activation codes. On her screen, all 48 devices showed green status lights. Deep within each bomb, magnetic fields released their grip on tiny singularities. Gravitational forces began their work on the star. "Sequence active," O confirmed. "Cascade has begun. Supernova in 71 hours, 14 minutes. "Get us out of here," Bay ordered. "Maximum stealth protocols. We do not stop until we reach human space." The final warning turned away from the Krell system and accelerated toward the edge of the gravity well, where they could engage faster than light travel. Behind them, the Krell star continued to shine normally. Nothing visible had changed, but deep in its core, the collapse had begun. The crew sat in silence during the journey home. Some stared at nothing. Some prayed. Engineer O went to her quarters and cried for an hour, then returned to duty with dry eyes and steady hands. They were all changed by what they had done. 3 days into the return journey, the time came. O had set up a sensor relay before they left, positioned to observe the Krell system from a safe distance. She routed the feed to the bridge displays. Bay gathered the crew. "I am not going to order you to watch, but if you helped deploy those devices, you should see what they do. We should not hide from the consequences of our actions." They watched together. At first, nothing happened. Then the Krell star began to brighten. It grew brighter and brighter, far beyond its normal luminosity. Ships near the star tried to flee, but there was no time. The star collapsed inward, then exploded outward in a wave of superheated plasma and radiation. The shock wave consumed the inner planets instantly. The Krell homeworld lasted perhaps 3 seconds before its atmosphere was stripped away and the surface melted into slag. The orbital stations and ships were vaporized. The expanding wave of stellar matter raced outward at a significant fraction of light speed, destroying everything in the system. It was over in less than a minute. Where there had been a thriving civilization, there was now only an expanding cloud of hot gas and debris. The Krell star was gone. The Krell homeworld was gone. Billions of lives ended in an instant. The crew of the final warning watched in silence. Some turned away. Some kept watching until the sensor feed showed nothing but the aftermath. Commander Bay stood alone on the bridge long after the others had left. He thought about the choice President Lee had made. He thought about the children at New Jeju who never had a chance to grow up. He thought about the Krell children who had just died for the crimes of their military. There were no good choices. Only necessary ones, and history would decide if they had chosen correctly. The Galactic Council chamber on the neutral world of Concordia had never been so crowded. Representatives from every member species filled the seats, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. The air translation devices hummed with dozens of languages being processed simultaneously. Everyone was talking at once, their voices rising in anger, confusion, and fear. Ambassador Yoon Jae-sung stood at the human delegation's platform, waiting for the chaos to settle. He looked calm on the outside, but inside he was terrified. This could end with humanity being expelled from the council. It could end with humanity being branded as genocidal monsters. It could even end with war. The council speaker, a tall crystalline being from the Valaxi species, finally brought order to the chamber. We will now hear from the human representative regarding the destruction of the Krell system. Yoon stepped forward. Behind him, screens activated, showing the footage from New Jeju. The council chamber fell silent as they watched the Krell attack unfold. Yoon let the footage play without commentary. The images spoke for themselves. Plasma fire destroying the station, civilians running for their lives, children dying. The massacre lasted 6 hours in reality, but Yoon showed 15 minutes of the worst moments. When the footage ended, he spoke. 723 humans died in this attack. 83 of them were children. The Krell attacked without warning, without provocation, without mercy. They took no prisoners. They made no demands. They simply killed everyone they could find, and then left. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Many council members had heard reports of the New Jeju attack, but seeing it was different. The brutality was shocking. Yoon continued. We investigated. We searched the council records. We learned that this was not the first time the Krell had done this. Over the past 100 years, they attacked at least 4 other species in similar fashion. Each time, the council issued warnings. Each time, the Krell paid minimal compensation and promised to investigate. And each time, they did it again to someone else. He brought up the intelligence that Captain Song had gathered. Images of the Krell homeworld's trophy collection appeared on the screens. Wreckage from dozens of destroyed ships, orbiting their world like monuments to their kills. We also learned that these attacks were not mistakes or rogue operations. They were official military rituals. Krell warriors earned honor by attacking what they called soft species, unarmed civilians, scientists, children, and they were planning to do it again. They had already selected another human outpost for their next raid. The council speaker leaned forward. These are serious accusations, Ambassador, but they do not justify the destruction of an entire civilization. Billions of Krell died. Most of them were innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the military attacks. You are correct, Yoon said quietly. Most of the Krell who died were innocent. That is a weight humanity will carry forever. But I ask the Council to consider, what were we supposed to do? Lodge another complaint that would be ignored? Pay our respects to the dead and wait for the next attack? Accept that frontier humans are acceptable losses as long as it does not disturb galactic politics? He looked around the chamber at all the different species. Humanity joined the Galactic Council 20 years ago. We followed every rule. We respected every boundary. We sought cooperation and peace. And when we were attacked, we looked to the Council for justice. But the Council had failed to protect 4 other species before us. Why would we believe it would protect humanity? A Thalan representative rose, its tentacles waving in agitation. You speak of justice, but you committed genocide. You destroyed an entire world without giving them a chance to respond or make amends. The Krell had 100 years to make amends, Yoon replied. They had 4 previous attacks to change their behavior. They chose not to. And when we intercepted their communications, we learned they were planning to attack us again within 3 months. How many more humans should have died before our response became acceptable to the Council? President Lee Da-eun had been sitting in the human delegation area. Now she stood and walked to join Yoon at the platform. She had not been scheduled to speak, but she stepped forward anyway. I gave the order, Lee said clearly. The responsibility is mine alone. I authorized the deployment of the weapon that destroyed the Krell system. I knew what it would do. I knew billions would die. And I gave the order anyway. The chamber erupted again. Lee waited for silence, then continued. I am not asking for your approval. I am not asking for your forgiveness. I am explaining humanity's position. We will not allow the massacre of our people. Any species that attacks human civilians with intent to exterminate them will face total response. Not partial, not measured, total. A Korthian delegate stood up, its multiple eyes fixed on Lee. You are threatening the entire galaxy. You are saying that if anyone offends humanity, you will destroy their homeworld. No, Lee corrected. We are saying that if anyone commits mass murder against human civilians, we will ensure they cannot do it again. Ever. There is a significant difference. Humanity does not seek conflict. We do not desire conquest. But we will protect our people with every resource we possess. Including genocide? The Korthian demanded. Lee met its gaze steadily. Including extinction, if necessary. We did not want this capability. We hoped we would never need it. But the Krell proved that some threats cannot be deterred by conventional means. So yes, we possess the ability to destroy entire systems. And yes, we have proven we will use it when our people are slaughtered. The debate raged for hours. Some species condemned humanity's action as barbaric. Others quietly admitted that the Krell had been a problem for a long time and someone needed to stop them. A few species that had lost outposts to Krell raids expressed private gratitude that humanity had done what they could not. In the end, the Galactic Council passed a formal resolution condemning the destruction of the Krell system, but they did not expel humanity from the Council. They did not impose sanctions. They did not take any real action at all. The resolution was words on paper, meant to satisfy those who needed to publicly object, while privately accepting that the balance of power had changed. Humanity was no longer seen as a junior member of the galactic community. They were now a species that had demonstrated the will to use ultimate force. That changed everything. Back on Earth, Commander Park Ji-won attended the memorial service at New Jeju. The station had been partially rebuilt, and a new wall had been erected with the names of all 723 victims. Survivors and families gathered to lay flowers and remember the dead. Park stood with Dr. Han Min Seo and Lieutenant Choi Sung Min. They were the senior officers who had survived the attack. They carried the memories of that terrible day. Do you think we did the right thing? Han asked quietly. Park looked at the names on the wall. I do not know. The Krell killed our people. Humanity killed theirs. Both sides claimed justice. Both sides caused terrible death. I cannot say who was right. But you can say it will not happen again, Choi observed. No one will attack a human outpost like that now. Everyone knows what will happen if they do. Yes, Park agreed. We bought safety with blood, theirs and ours. Whether that was right or wrong, history will judge. At the military academy on Earth, Admiral Kim Tai-yang addressed the graduating class of new officers. He spoke about New Jeju, about the choice humanity faced, about the weapon they deployed. The young officers listened with serious faces, understanding that they were inheriting a new responsibility. Strength without restraint is tyranny, Kim told them. Restraint without strength is suicide. Humanity must walk the line between them. We have shown the galaxy that we possess the capability for ultimate force. Now we must show them that we also possess the wisdom to use it only when absolutely necessary. He looked at each young face. You will be ambassadors of human values as much as defenders of human territory. Some will fear us now. Some will hate us. Some will respect us. Your job is to prove that humanity deserves that respect. Be strong. Be just. Be merciful when mercy is possible. But never forget what happened at New Jeju, and never hesitate to protect human lives. The graduating officers stood and saluted. They understood. The galaxy had changed, and they were the generation that would navigate this new reality. Captain Song Hye-jin returned to active duty, commanding reconnaissance missions along the frontier. The silent observer continued its work, watching for threats, gathering intelligence, protecting humanity from dangers before they could strike. One day, as she monitored sensor data from a distant system, Song detected unusual activity. An unknown species was probing human space, testing defenses, studying patrol patterns. It looked like they might be planning an attack. Song prepared her report and sent it to Earth Defense Command. Within hours, Admiral Kim authorized a response, but not a military strike, not a preemptive attack. Instead, humanity sent a diplomatic mission. The message was simple and direct. Humanity knew the unknown species was watching. Humanity understood they might be considering hostile action. Humanity wanted to talk instead. Humanity offered trade agreements, technology sharing, cultural exchange. But the message also included sensor logs from the Krell system's destruction. The unknown species withdrew immediately. They sent no reply, but they stopped probing human space. Message received. That became the pattern. Humanity remained cooperative and peaceful in most interactions. They traded fairly. They shared knowledge. They helped other species with problems and disasters. But everyone knew about New Jeju. Everyone knew about the Krell. Everyone knew that humanity would go to absolute extremes to protect their people. No one attacked human outposts anymore. Years later, President Lee stepped down from office. In her final speech, she addressed the Krell situation directly. I gave an order that ended billions of lives. I will carry that weight until I die. I cannot say if I made the right choice. I can only say I made the choice I believed would protect humanity. Future generations will judge whether the price was worth the safety we gained. The memorial at New Jeju remained a pilgrimage site. Humans came from all over colonized space to see the names on the wall and remember. The station became a symbol of both humanity's vulnerability and humanity's resolve. In the Galactic Council chambers, when debates became heated and threats were exchanged, someone would always mention the Krell. The name became shorthand for a simple truth. There are lines that should not be crossed. There are actions that carry ultimate consequences. Humanity had drawn that line with fire and finality, and the galaxy learned to respect it.